Get ready to feel
the power.
That's Colin, Crandall, myself, Adam Roorda. Colin is actually the man of the hour. He is the host, and I am just a producer. So you hear me coming out at the beginning and the end of every show a little bit. But it is mostly about Colin here. And MMA Power Hour is brought to you by Lith Token. Head on over to lithtoken.io. And join Telegram, Discord. We have a lot of cool things going on. And I say I am actually the blockchain architect over there. We are having fun supporting MMA Power Hour, keeping it alive here through everything that's going on, pandemic and us transitioning to our own studio. And Colin also has brought in cross-trained MMA fighter to help out with everything as well. So great episodes brought to you guys every single week. And Colin, you know, we've had some amazingness going on and craziness going on in the world of MMA, and weight misses, and a lot of
fights canceled.
Fights canceled, behind the scenes
changed,
fights,
different matches made the day before the card. Yep.
What is going on?
Absolutely. Well, first I want to welcome everyone here to Fantasy Island. For those of you who remember that old show. Seriously though, this is a Lith Token cross-trained MMA fighter mimosa. Cheers.
All right. So with that, there's zero champagne. It's 100% Everclear.
Virgin. Yeah, Everclear. That's what I would definitely drink.
It's virgin Everclear with nothing but alcohol.
Exactly. Made by 10 virgins, squeezing the oranges very delicately, you know.
That's how we roll around.
That's how we roll, for sure, man. So yeah, absolutely, you guys check out Lith Token. It's an amazing project. Adam is the blockchain architect, and if you're swimming in the metaverse and you don't want to drown, reach onto that big, beautiful brick that's going to save your life, called Lith Token. And you got to get that at LitX, right? It's so lit that it's got an X at the end.
Yep, right? So lit. And when everybody was starting to find out about us coming out, actually, there was 3 organizations in total that turned around and tried to use our ticker symbol. And they succeeded in DeFi, and we didn't want that. So we went ahead and switched it up to LitX, so that way you can get lit with us and know that we're the real deal. And we are available on Bitmart.
Yes.
So for U.S. citizens, make sure to hit up Bitmart. If you're in the UK, actually most countries, as long as it's not banned or sanctioned in whatever nation, you'll be able to access Bitmart. It's bitmart.com. Look up LitX. It is exchangeable via USDT.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a sensation across the nations, as they say, from my own.
Will be.
Yes.
With the physical NFTs that we're doing, guys, it changes the game. It really does. Everybody's been looking to have cryptocurrency become tangible, and that's exactly what our technology, patent pending internationally, we are about ready to take the world by storm.
Without a doubt. So jump on that board. Do not miss the storm. It's going to be raining money. So anyway,
I hope so. I can't make that promise out there. Colin's not a financial advisor, neither am I, but I would say it's a good bet.
Absolutely, without a doubt, really good stuff. And cross-trained MMA fighter, we got a few shirts left. You guys want to jump on them, because next run is not going to be probably till sometime next year, maybe late. The most comfortable, form-fitting, make you look in better shape than you are t-shirts, and nothing says you are a fan of or train or are a fighter than cross-trained MMA fighter gear. So get some. It's really good. Hit me up directly. You will not regret it. Prices are reasonable, very reasonable for the quality. Anyway, that's about it. So yeah, the last week's card, and you know what, this wasn't even last week's card. Yes, it was. What am I saying? It wasn't. No, it wasn't. The week before, this past Saturday's card was the card after UFC 279.
Still a weight miss to talk about, and we have a guest on to talk about that a little bit.
We do, and we weren't on the last couple of weeks, so we're actually catching up. So UFC 279 from a week ago Saturday, how crazy was that? 3 fight changes the day before the fight card. Since Khamzat Chimaev missed weight, and he was supposed to fight Nate Diaz, and you know what, they never did say, this is what's interesting that I wonder, Adam, when Khamzat missed weight by 8.5 pounds and was already a 10-1 favorite to Nate Diaz, he's 9 years younger than Nate, way bigger man. It was supposed to be a crush fight. There were several of us that believed Nate maybe could have done something, but a lot of people felt he was just going to get steamrolled. When Khamzat missed weight on top of that expectation by 8.5 pounds, no one ever said, was it the Diaz camp that said absolutely not, or was it Dana and UFC management that said absolutely
There's
not?
a lot of theories going around,
right.
man.
They didn't disclose that.
You know, there's people saying it was planned, and then there's Brendan Schaub and Pat Miletich sitting here saying like there's this conspiracy going on.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know.
It's hard to imagine Nate Diaz would say no. You almost feel like if there's big money involved and Nate was going to fight Francis Ngannou, he would take the fight probably. You know what I mean? Which is insane. But
is there under the table money though? That
it is possible,
to change it up and have all the drama there.
Yeah,
you know, that's the theory right now by a lot of people. And you know, I don't know. It's
the question. Well, questions.
I can't believe Dana called Pat an idiot though. He called him a fucking idiot, and it was like, man.
You know, that Dana
that was harsh.
Yeah, although you know what, Dana has that label ready in his back pocket
for everybody. Absolutely, yeah, I've heard him use it a lot.
Right. I mean, if
liberally.
you know, yeah, I think there are some people that hold that as one of their prize possessions is a tweet or a statement where Dana called them a fucking idiot. So in a way, a lot of people...
It's an honor, right?
Right, it's kind of a badge of honor. If Dana knows who you are enough to call you a fucking idiot, then you're maybe someone. So, although still, it's not the nicest thing, but then Dana's always been a guy who tells it like it is. I mean, you know, what can you say? But breaking down what happened, everyone knows when Khamzat missed the weight, all of a sudden, him and Diaz was off. However, since Kevin Holland, ironically, and D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, two former guests on our show, great guys, had an agreement at 180 limit, they said this is perfect, and they just went to Holland, and they said, you want to fight Khamzat on short notice? Now, you got to give it to Kevin Holland. That's showed a lot of balls. Right. I think majority of people saying you want to fight Khamzat Chimaev on 1 day notice would say like, nah, I think I'd rather, you know, not add a loss to my record because the guy's a killer. But Kevin Holland and his team was like, bring it, man, bring the big man. So they made that matchup. Nate Diaz.
I mean, going the other direction, I don't disagree either. You know, that's Kevin Holland on a day's notice.
That's true too.
Going up against a short notice guy that's used to it.
That is true, but then the odds showed Khamzat was 4-1 favorite. But
it makes sense. But
they were both winning fighters for sure. Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I actually think the odds makers were being too kind to Khamzat on just a day's notice like that. I would give it to Holland if I really thought that he had enough
preparation.
Well, not just preparation, but just in his bag to really pull it off against that style.
Right, and you know what, he may have, but the one thing, and sorry to cut off your flow, is that one thing that people are not talking about, and I know I'm not trying to harp on this, I'm not trying to take anything away really from Khamzat, but Khamzat knew he had the wrestling advantage.
And that's what I'm talking about.
All right. Although Kevin had been practicing since he got out wrestled by middleweights, and now he's at welterweight. When they went for the high touch of hands after they guy said fight, and Khamzat put his hand up. Yeah, and as soon as Kevin put his hands up like this, Khamzat didn't touch his hand and then shot.
Yeah, that was cheap.
Yeah, that was really, really cheap because, in all honesty, Kevin was going to make him work for that takedown, and to take the advantage like that, yeah, I'm not liking that.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know what's his face. Khabib was actually going ahead and turning around and saying, "Listen, if you're not surrounded by good people, you're going to be doing bad things."
Shady stuff, right? Yeah,
and that was in reference to that and a few other things to deal with them. But
yeah, because Khabib never would have done that. You could never see Khabib doing that, faking a hand touch and then shooting on someone. Khabib didn't need to do that.
He just didn't hand touch anybody.
Yeah, you know, either that or if he did, he would actually touch their hand.
Right.
So yeah, so that was problem. Now a lot of people are saying, well, maybe it might have been a little bit harder for Khamzat to get that first takedown, but once he got it, he would have steamrolled Kevin. Maybe, but maybe not. And to me, the fact that we couldn't find out it's not cool. It's a similar thing as if, what if someone punks Khamzat one day, a way better striker? What if Khamzat goes up and goes up against Leon Edwards for the title, and Leon fakes a touch and then kicks Khamzat in the head? You know, how cool would that be? That wouldn't be probably too cool for Khamzat's camp.
Right.
You know what I mean, right? So anyway, that's my thought on that, but it is what it is. D-Rod and the Leech, Li Jinglong, was a very interesting fight. Being that D-Rod was set to fight Holland at a 180 limit, he was about 179.5, 180. The Leech weighed in at 170, so the Leech is a stud to take that fight. You can see D-Rod not only looked 10 pounds heavier, but since they rehydrated, D-Rod looked 15 or 20 pounds heavier in that fight. But it was a really close fight. Leech, the Leech, Li Jinglong, the smaller man, really held his own, and that was a really close fight. But yeah, both men look good. Congratulations on the win to D-Rod, but also Li Jinglong, man, chin up. That was sweet. That was a very good fight, fighting a larger opponent. And then Tony Ferguson against Nate. I mean, that was two legends that should have fought years ago. I mean, literally, they've both been in the game for like 15 years. I think Nate is 38 and Kevin was 37, I think. Excuse me, sorry. And it's unfortunate because Tony has really been compromised the last few fights. He just got the breaks. The fight with Gaethje was horrible. The fight with Gaethje, he showed himself to have one of the best chins out there, but to just be absolutely beaten down like that, and then he got caught with that kick. I think Michael Chandler. It was a Chandler fight where he got knocked cold as well. And so he was, even though he was up in weight, so he was at least hydrated, Tony was really, kind of, toward the end of his career. Nate isn't far from there, but hasn't really taken beatdowns like that. He did kind of, but the bottom line is that was an interesting fight. Both men had a lot of respect for each other. Tony was a better wrestler, but Nate is really good. They're both longtime black belts. Nate out of the Cesar Gracie camp and training also under his brother Nick Diaz, and then Tony, 10th Planet black belt for several years. I think Nate was really just picking him apart on the feet. Nate had maybe about a 2-inch reach advantage, I think. Maybe he was like an inch and a half taller, but he was a fresher fighter, more left in him. And then I think at some point he was kind of like Tony was getting cut up, and I think he finally figured later on to shoot for a wrestling takedown, and he shot right in, and Nate caught him with the guillotine, and that's that. I mean, I don't think I remember any other time Tony being submitted, but it makes sense, and they had a lot of respect for each other. Great guys. I don't know where Tony's going to go from here. I think he's lost 4 in a row, and is 37, 38 years old. Probably Dana's probably about to have that talk with him. Nate, I think, is still a draw. I don't know that Nate's going to beat anyone. Tony was no longer in the top 10. And I don't think Nate was either. And so basically Nate just beat a guy who's not in the top 10 and who's 37 years old. That doesn't, to me, say he's going to start beating a bunch of 170 pounders, in the top 10. And not only that, that was last fight of his contract. I think the words he said, that I'm not done in the UFC, or don't think you won't see me in the UFC again, I don't know what that meant, because the contract's over, and I think he's going to explore getting big paydays in possibly a fight with like a Jake Paul or an Anderson Silva in boxing, or I don't know.
And he's talking of starting his own promotion.
Right?
That's actually exciting. Diaz brothers going and starting their own promotion.
Nick, it is. It's exciting. Nick used to always talk about that. And let me ask you this, Adam.
I feel like they'll bring a lot of value to bringing a sport back to more of the nitty gritty,
right, and getting all the excitement kind of back or surroundings. I think they might. Nick Diaz used to always, not always, but he on a few occasions talk about a sport that was MMA, but maybe didn't allow wrestling takedowns. And I don't know, other than calling it kickboxing, I don't know how you can modify MMA and say there's no takedowns. But one of the things that Nick felt is the jiu-jitsu's exciting, the striking's exciting, but a wrestler taking you down, not being able to submit you and not being able to really ground and pound you very much.
I mean, there's a way to do that, is penalize the ride with nothing going on. And, in the wrestling world, there is a penalty for it even, and that's called stalling.
Stalling, right.
So if they were to put stalling in as a rule set, I think that'd be a really interesting thing to watch.
It would make it, I think the purists and the wrestlers and Dan Gable would say it's not realistic fighting, but I think it would be exciting style fighting, because you're indeed what the Diaz brothers would like is it would stop wrestlers who don't have much jiu-jitsu and who don't have much ground and pound. It would stop them from constantly taking you down and trying to smother you, but not putting much damage on you. And that's one of the things the Diaz brothers always hated, because I think they always said, how is that really a win? A guy just shows he's a better wrestler.
If the scoring were figured out so that a stalling scenario or situation were to dock you points instead of having control points awarded to you.
Right, it'd be against.
I think people would be more excited to watch that. I'll call the wrestlers go in there and do it, because wrestlers, out of all the people out there, the ones that are really good at wrestling, and start realizing, oh, hey, maybe we can switch over. And actually, we have a guest in a few minutes that we're going to talk to you about this, is catch wrestling.
Yes.
And you tie that in, it gets to be a lot more exciting.
Yeah, it would be. It actually would be, because we still do see some fights where the wrestling wins the fighter the fight, but they really didn't put much damage on the guy below them because the guy's jiu-jitsu was good and was locking him in, or they just are not that good in ground and pound, or they don't really know submissions well, and they're awarded the fight essentially by out-wrestling their opponent. Now, me and you both, have all respect for wrestling, and the way the rules stand in a realistic fight, that's completely legit. But the Diaz brothers' point would be that doesn't make it a very exciting win. No one really got their butt kicked. One guy just out wrestled the other. And is that necessarily what MMA fans want? And they may have a point. And like me and you were just saying, I think it would if you did that.
I agree to that extent. I don't think anybody should get rid of wrestling from MMA. I don't think that makes sense. But I think if you were to limit the first off, the style of takedown, if it's just like a single leg pick and that's all it is, honestly, it probably doesn't have a place in MMA. If they're just out really far and doing that, I don't know that. And I say out really far, they have a big distance between them and another person. They refuse to close the gap and really get anything going on the feet, and they just use wrestling as their scapegoat in a real fight. I don't know. I can see the excitement of it being removed from being allowed, still allowing the bulldog and just straight double leg stuff like that. It's a lot more closing the gap in the distance.
Right. But just not awarding you for control time where you're not doing any damage, but actually maybe giving you a stalling penalty point. It'd be like a modified MMA with more striking and more action. And I could see the Diaz is pulling that off, because that's what they would want. And then
dirty, nitty gritty, and just down for strike battles all over the place.
Pretty much, guys beating the shit out of each other.
And there'd be a lot more snapped limbs, I think. But hey, man, it would make for an excellent sport, and I think they would bring back a lot of excitement that's not so WWE style.
Yes.
It's kind of creeping in, and I don't blame MMA. I actually blame bare knuckle boxing for that a little bit. It's just innately there. It's not any of the promotions out there that are doing it wrong. I just think the type of people it has attracted over the last little while, other than ex-MMA fighters and ex-traditional boxers, I think the bare knuckle boxing world is kind of, I don't want to call it a circus or a carnival, but at times it can get that way. And I think that's bringing a little bit of energy into the business side that is more WWE for MMA as well.
Yeah.
And I really see that happening. I think the purity of the sport was starting to get there for UFC and Bellator and one championship specifically, and now PFL. But I kind of feel like bare knuckle boxing creeping in popularity has kind of brought a sense of a need or a sense of a necessity to create more of a storyline.
Right.
And that's where it's interesting. I don't know. I look at boxing and that as a pure sport. They always do such a great job at showing a storyline in all their events. But when you're doing it week after week after week after week,
Right.
like UFC does,
Right, it's hard to maintain, especially when it's real.
it's hard to maintain an organic and authentic storyline. So I get it.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's not authentic. It is, for the most part, to what I know.
Yep.
It is organic completely from what I know, but there's at times it just doesn't feel that way. And I have to be real. It just doesn't feel that way sometimes. And
yeah.
I
don't want to cut you off too much, but I know we got our guests waiting. I don't want to hold.
Yeah, real quick before we call them.
Yeah.
I just feel like the shit talking. I don't know. It's Connor too, man. Connor kind of really started it, where it turned the shit talking into more of
him, and then Masvidal kind of took the hand off from Connor and became craziness. And
it's just at times it's shit talking is good. I love it, but there's a way to do it that actually boxers I think have really figured it out. Ali started it all, but
right.
All right, so let's go in and give our first guest a call. It's Kern, right?
Yep.
See what we can do to get him in here.
That I don't know who that is.
Showing he's online,
but I don't know who that is. A picture of.
That's Kern.
No, not that I know.
Yeah, it is. 100%. It's Kern.
That picture that you just showed?
Yeah. 100%. He's not online.
That seems very weird because that's not Curran Jacobs.
Yeah, it is. With glasses on.
If it is, then I must be blind because I know.
You are blind.
Oh, thank you, but
I've got multiple calls. Says his name right there.
Oh, so we've actually talked to him from there. Trying to Skype you right now, brother. That's probably an old-time catch wrestler is who that is. I'll bet you that.
No, it's Kern. Seen the picture. You don't know what you're talking about with this.
I'm also not seeing the monitor super clearly.
It's a little small for you, but yeah, he's got glasses on, and
that's just
from
here. It looks nothing like him.
What are you talking about? It looks
okay. Wait, here's his Skype. Whoop. Can you see?
No, I can't. You're gonna have to hand it to me.
All right, I'm out of the camera, Ray. Sorry about that, guys. You might end up apologizing because it was not Curran Jacobs.
That was totally him. All right, it's different.
Okay,
we've spoken with him before here.
Okay, thank you. But then if that's him, then I look kind of like Brad Pitt. Where are we? How do we? Oh man.
There he is.
Yeah, but
here I am.
Wait a second, Curran, can you hear me?
Yes, I certainly can.
I can't. Hang on a second. Sorry, Curran. We had a problem where we had the wrong Skype for you, and now something screwed up here. Let me try it here. Can you hear me, Curran?
Yes, I can.
All right. This is the wrong way, but maybe we'll figure it out.
It's just in the other ear. If it's working, Colin, nobody cares.
It doesn't matter. All right, Curran. I'm going to assume you can hear me good. We see you there. Ladies and gentlemen, happy to have this next guest on the show. And I know you were the director. I'm not sure if you're the producer, Curran. Were you producer, director of For the Love of Catch?
Yep.
All right, so here we have, ladies and gentlemen, producer, director of For the Love of Catch, amazing actor, fighter, catch wrestler, and a good friend of mine, Mr. Curran Jacobs. Welcome back to the show, Curran.
My brother, thank you for having me back on. This is awesome.
My pleasure, man. I like to think of you, as I mentioned to you, I think the best name for you would be the Irish Spartan, because you're Irish American and you went to Michigan State and were a Spartan. Is that a good nickname?
I like it a lot, actually. It's pretty sweet.
Cool. I appreciate it, because I know you're the Giant Slayer, which is always what you did in your catch wrestling matches where you're smashing people, and even in MMA. But yeah, on occasion you have my permission to use the Irish Spartan, because that suits you, man. But Curran, this is an amazing documentary film. I know you're having a premiere, but I think it's also kind of been released in some forms of media already. Forgive me for not knowing, but Tell me how that works. Is it out in some regards right now, but then there's also kind of going to be a premiere, or are we only seeing clips? What's the process of where things stand with this amazing documentary film?
So that's a great question. As a matter of fact, it has not been released yet. It's not going to be released internationally via streaming on Prime Video until October 4th. But before that, on Saturday, October 1st, is the world premiere right at the theater in my hometown. I'm super excited about it. You know, I think the town's going to show up and create an echo that's going to be heard around the world before it's officially released on October 4th. So that's the thing. We've been pumping out a lot of marketing, a lot of advertising, because we want a lot of eyes on this, and we've put a lot of work into the marketing, and so that's what you're probably seeing is a lot of clips, getting people excited about it.
Absolutely. And I have seen that. And also, forgive me, people watching, I was fiddling with this thing in my ear. We had a different Skype address for you with a picture that looked nothing like you as the logo on the Skype. And it was someone wearing glasses and with completely straight hair that was short. And, right? And the glasses looked like it was from the 1950s. And my producer, Dr. Adam, said, "That's Curran." And I said, "I'm looking at this picture, and this is not my friend Curran Jacobs." And they said, "Oh, it is." And I said, "It is. It just isn't." And they said, "No, that's Curran."
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
man.
And I said, "So if that's Curran, then I probably look like exactly like a young Brad Pitt." You know what I mean? Because it was then we got the thing from you, but then by me having to give my phone with your Skype address, because we're not gonna put that on the air, I had to step over, and now I'm messing with my ear freaking phone here. But anyway, people forgive me on that. I think I've got it set. Anyway, Curran, really excited about For the Love of Catch. Tell me some of the people that were involved in the production, and I think a lot of the people that were involved were actually on camera talking about catch wrestling and how it influenced them and their knowledge about it. But tell me some of the people. I know you have at least a few pretty prominent names in the world of combat sports and wrestling that contributed to For the Love of Catch.
Yeah, definitely. This wouldn't have happened without Randy Couture. Yep. He my wrestling coach at Michigan State University, Tom Minkle, introduced me to Randy back in 2012, and he's been a really good friend and mentor ever since then, and he introduced me to catch wrestling. So he is in it, and he shares his vast knowledge on the history of the sport with everybody. We've got Josh Barnett, who is widely recognized as probably one of the most prominent catch wrestlers, especially in North America. Mm-hmm. Eric Paulson, who was Josh Barnett's coach, Ken Shamrock's coach,
the Viking,
just a legendary grappler. We got Gokor
Chivichian.
Yes, thank you. It's like
my friend. Yeah,
he always gets me. Ronda Rousey's
original coach, yeah, and the top student and protege of the late judo Gene LaBelle.
Yes. Yeah, he is just an absolute killer on the mat, and he has some great tidbits when it comes to the history of catch as catch can. We've got a fantastic segment with Dan the Beast Severn. He actually shows our cameraman a thing or two about pro wrestling in the ring, and it's hilarious. I think the audience is going to love that part. We've got Tom and Terry Brands, legendary coaches with the Iowa Hawkeyes, along with none other Dan Gable.
Awesome.
We've got, never before seen footage of him showing us around his house, talking, about the history of catch wrestling, telling us a little bit about himself. And it's loaded with, wrestling and MMA legends that really share their love and passion for the sport of wrestling. And I think that this is going to be huge for our sport, for both men and women when it hits. So super excited.
Absolutely, man, and I am as well. And for those of you guys watching, I know we have some fans that are extremely educated in the history and some of the MMA pioneers and wrestlers. Some are somewhat educated and some are not that educated and are more new to it. But for those of you guys that don't know, the names that Curran just, and I'm having to fiddle with this stupid thing once again in my ear. Apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, whatever. It'll be what it'll be. But the names that Curran threw out are absolutely some of the most knowledgeable people of grappling and catch wrestling and submission holds in the world. Just an amazing group of guys that you mentioned, not in any particular order, but Eric Paulson, Pancrase champion, black belt from the I think the Gracies and the Machados. Also trained under Gene LaBelle, also under Danny Inosanto. The guy is an absolute genius, an encyclopedia. And in fact, I think he was the one that made the statement, I think about 15 years ago in a magazine, that the human body is just a submission waiting to happen. And I reminded him of that. I think he had forgotten when he said that. But to have Eric Paulson, to have Randy Couture, former two-time two-weight division UFC champion and Greco-Roman wrestling god, Dan Severn, multiple time UFC tournament champion back in the day, and numerous time All-American in wrestling, and to have Gokar Chivichian, I think really never losing a tournament since he was a child, winning every tournament from like the age of 18 to competition to from like 18 to his last one when I think he was 54 or 55 years old. Dan Gable, the most prolific collegiate wrestling coach out there, absolutely insane. Josh Barnett, former UFC champion, champion in numerous organizations around the world in MMA, absolute genius. And it's just amazing, and having all those guys together to collaborate is incredible. Now, I'm sure you never had, you probably didn't have all those guys in the same room ever at one time, because that would be amazingly difficult, I would think, to coordinate with everyone's schedule. But am I wrong, or are they all going to be able to make the premiere? Because that would be sure interesting to see all those guys together. Several of them, I think, know each other and like each other. And I think some of them maybe just don't know each other much. But what's the plan on that? Because I would think it'd be incredible to have yourself and all those guys in the same room.
Yeah, it would have been. Originally, we were looking at a premiere in Las Vegas. You know, we actually had a place locked down. But I thought about it, you know, and spent so many hours on this project. And my friends, close friends, family, everyone that I really want to be in attendance and share this experience with, you know, they're in Michigan. Yeah. So to bring it home was really important to me. I tried getting those guys to come to the premiere. You know, they're busy, super busy. I mean, and it's to be expected with their schedules. You know, Randy's got to be in Mexico. You know, everyone's got their thing going on, which is completely understandable, but they'll be able to stream it a few days after. Yeah, man, you know, the people from my hometown are going to be in attendance. They're going to blow the roof off the place and make some noise and get everyone else excited about it.
Absolutely. And the one Michigander you have is Dan Severn, although I think Dan lives in Arizona lately, doesn't he? Or is he still in Michigan?
Yeah, the Beast. That's another guy. Yeah, Coldwater, Michigan.
Yes.
He's about an hour away from me. I'm trying to get him. Right now, he's on the fence. He doesn't know if he's going to be having to hit the road. That man seems to never sleep.
Road warrior, for sure.
But yeah, man, I'm trying to get them all to come and attend, because I know they'll love it.
Absolutely.
But I got an interesting fact for you.
Yeah, tell me.
I have Gordon Ryan to thank for this whole thing going down as well.
Wow.
When it comes to the documentary.
How so?
Well, you've been following me long enough to know that after I won the catch championship in 2018,
yes,
I kind of turned into a pro wrestler with my videos and going just crazy online,
yes,
posting videos, going after that guy.
Yes.
And I was this close to getting a match. I was literally so close to getting a match with the best grappler on the planet.
Yep.
And while I was posting those videos, we captured the interest of two producers.
Oh, wow.
DJ Perry and Tony Horness. And they brought me and my friend in, Adam Towner, the guy largely responsible for editing those videos when we were going after Gordon. Mm-hmm. And these producers were like, yo, you guys got some serious talent behind the camera and in front of the camera. Do you ever think about doing a film on the history of catch wrestling? We think a lot of people would be into that. So if it wasn't for our crazy barrage of videos that we released online trying to get that match with Gordon Ryan, this documentary probably never would have happened.
That's
so
awesome. So thank you kind of inadvertently, indirectly to Gordon Ryan. That's cool.
Exactly.
That's cool. Do you know, I don't know if you know, but about a year ago, if that, I interviewed Gordon on this show.
I did not know that. No.
Yes, I did. I'll see if I can dig it up and send it to you. And it's interesting because, you know, he's kind of a polarizing figure. He's a young guy, very cocky, very talented, and he's been known to not let anyone get away with anything online. He'll come back and talk trash. And a lot of people, most people respect him. Some people don't like him. Some people have said, you know, you can't really deal with him because if you say anything that pisses him off, you know, he'll smash you even verbally. And so I wasn't sure what I was going to get when I got him on the show, but he was gentleman, complete gentleman. He literally didn't give me a second of a bad attitude in any regard, not a second. Yeah.
Something really stuck with me when he was doing his press conference with Felipe Pena. Mm-hmm. Pena said something about Gordon Ryan that kind of struck me. He said, you know, Gordon's actually a good guy behind the scenes when the camera's not rolling. And I think that Gordon falls in the trap that I fell into, that I think most MMA fighters can even say that they fall into, where, you know, you can be good all day long, but if you're not interesting, if you're not talking trash, if you're not, you know, if you're not doing this, and this to bring the audience in, which ties into the Catch Wrestling documentary, the history of professional wrestling, where, you know, to be a polarizing character, to draw in the crowd. That's what I was trying to do, and that's why I went after him so hard. So I think it's safe to say that with the exception of Danaher and the Death Squad and those guys, nobody really knows who Gordon is. Right. You know, behind the scenes, what he posts and everything that he does and says, you know, that could be a complete facade. Right. Nobody knows, you know, except for him and his tight group. But whatever, hey, it's working for him. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But yeah, he was super cool, super respectful. Every question I asked him, he gave a well thought out answer, just like yourself. And yeah, I'll see if I can send you that. But yeah, it was very cool. Yeah. It was actually during the time before he made his comeback when he was sick. And he had said, I'm through. I can't continue. I can't keep my weight on because of the intestinal illness. So it was actually during that period of time where he was out for about 4 or 5 months or 6 months, feeling his career was over. So yeah, it was an interesting time. But we've only got about 6 minutes left, I think, with you, Curran. So let me ask you a couple rapid fire things, and then we'll finish off with For the Love of Catch. But for the matchup, did you have a chance yet to see his match from I think about 36 hours ago with Andre Galvao in ADCC?
Yes.
So a question for you. It was a great match. Gordon is 14 years younger. I'm not trying to make an excuse for Galvao because the weight I think was similar, but Gordon had I think a good length, reach, and height advantage. Not that that's everything, because it isn't, but the age advantage was there. Do you think, having seen Galvao back in the day, if Galvao could go in a time machine, have the muscle, because Galvao was smaller when he was younger, but if Galvao could have been 10 years younger or even the same age as Gordon and had the same physicality that he has now, would that fight have been different, and how much different would it have been, and what do you think the result would have been different?
You know, I think that I think Gordon Ryan has been dabbling in some catch wrestling training. I think that Danaher has adopted a lot of the catch wrestling mindset. You know, you see Danaher coming out with all this pinning combos now, and just the strategy, that catch wrestling mindset with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm gonna say that I don't think it would have changed. I think this is Gordon's time. I'd still love to have a match with the guy. I think that I would give him a hell of a time, but that's that wrestler's mindset kicking in. But I think that he this is his time, man. He is the best grappler on the planet.
Yep.
And if anyone argues that, you know, I think that it's just some bitterness. I don't think I don't think it would have been different 10 years ago. I think that he is in his prime right now, and he's super dangerous, man.
Absolutely.
He's good, man.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And let me see exactly what time. I think we got 3 minutes. So we'll say about a minute and a half. So Curran, what I want to do, I want to bring you back on in about a month before that amazing card, UFC 280. That card is being headlined by former champion Charles Oliveira, who only lost his title by missing weight, going up against Khabib's protege, Islam Makhachev. That's one of the most exciting matchups in many, many years. Also on that card, Beneil Dariush and Mateus Gamrot. So many other guys on that card I can't even remember. But I know you don't have a lot of time to do homework, but if you can check out at least those two fights, but look at the roster, UFC 280. I'd love to get you on to break down your thoughts of at least those two matches, and I think even a few more. I think there's also a title fight, Aljamain Sterling against TJ Dillashaw. I mean, that card is absolutely berserk. And so if you have a chance before then, and I think I'm going to also bring on Eric Paulson and maybe one other grappling expert to get all you guys' opinions on that fight. So I'll hit you up, but if you could be available the Tuesday before that fight, I think October 22nd is the date. So it'd be like October 18th or 17th or something. But I'd love to have you then. I'm
in, man. Just let me name the time and we'll get it going. I would love to break those down.
Awesome. Thanks, Curran. The last 30 seconds, let people know where they can find the teasers of the great documentary film coming up, For the Love of Catch, and then where they can watch when it's released and where they can get it and buy it and support it.
My man, thank you for this opportunity. We have been posting all of the information on For the Love of Catch on Facebook. You can also find a lot of information on my Instagram, Curran the Giant Slayer Jacobs. It will be available for pay-per-view on Prime Video on October 4th. So check it out, leave a review, give us your thoughts after you watch it. You know, spread the word. Word of mouth is going to be huge. If you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fan, MMA fan, wrestling fan, or even if you're not a fan, you're really going to enjoy this. We can't wait for people to see it.
Absolutely. I really look forward to it, man. You're an amazing guy, Curran. I can't wait to see your continued success, and I think this is going to be a big part of it. For the Love of Catch, star-studded cast of people contributing to it, and don't miss it if you care anything about grappling or if you want to learn or just see a great production. So Curran Jacobs, Giant Slayer, the man I love to call the Irish Spartan. God bless you all. Respect to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show, brother.
Bless you as well, my friend. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too. Talk soon. Have a great night. All right, great guy, Curran Jacobs. Dr. Adam Roorda, as a high school wrestler, junior high school wrestler that you were, with those names involved, tell me you're not looking forward to that.
I'm stoked. I'll be getting it. I was just actually in the other room moments ago, and I was just over there liking stuff.
Nice. Yeah,
I was looking into
all those people contributing: Eric Paulson, Gokar Trevichian, Dan Gable, Randy Couture, Dan Severn.
The biggest one to me is just Dan Gable. Yeah, that's what has me stoked. So, all right, man, I'm gonna go ahead and go straight in. She's ready, and let's give it a roll.
Awesome.
In 3, 2, 1. Scat dance.
Hey, Sarah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome, we got you there. So I'm going to give you that proper introduction as I do all my guests. Ladies and gentlemen, so happy to have this next guest back on the show for an interview. Longtime UFC top 10 bantamweight contender, silver medalist in the Olympics, amazing wrestler, and just a fantastic person. Sarah Mcmahon, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be back.
My pleasure, and I always love talking to you. So you went to ADCC, and forgive me for being stupid, but I'm guessing I'm seeing Vegas, but it was always used to be in the United Arab Emirates, but apparently not this time. And I feel like an idiot for not knowing. I've been so caught up in MMA and other things, but I think it was in Vegas, right?
Yeah, and I think the year before, or 2 years before, the last event was in California. It's not always in Abu Dhabi. It's sometimes in different locations. So that I'm pretty sure the last one was in California, and my husband and I went.
Very cool. So what did you think? Did you have a good time? There were some amazing matches, weren't there?
Yes, it was. So I love watching the earlier rounds because you get to see people who are like the really established guys versus the young, up and coming, hungry guys.
Right.
And always like really exciting to watch those matchups.
Absolutely. Do you find yourself more interested in the women's or the men's or equal?
It's pretty equal. Just because it's such a high level tournament, you're going to see great grappling from the upper weights, the lower weights, and men and women. And I mean, it's just a really, really high level competition.
Absolutely. Do you feel if you had known that your fight was not going to happen in the UFC that you would have been there competing?
So I was offered to do it the last time around. And the only tricky thing about that is that I can't make 132 and below. So I would have to fight at the other weight class, which is 132 to open. So I've had to like say, I just can't do it, because if I get injured doing anything else and I can't fight, or God forbid, it's like a career ending injury, I think that would be really terrible. And I would regret doing it. Yeah. So it's just something that if I'm not able to do it. But I love jiu-jitsu and I love grappling. So it kind of makes me sad, but I'm a fighter still, so I have to put priorities on it.
Without a doubt. I agree 100%. Was Gabby Garcia there, or did she compete somewhere else?
Yeah, and to be truthful, Gabby Garcia is like one of the main reasons, because the other girls are big, but they're not unbelievably big, and right. Gabby is very large, a black belt, and like the risk of like getting injured because of the weight discrepancy is significant.
Yeah.
Girls is just not as big.
Yeah, without a doubt, it just would really have been unfair and dangerous, and it makes sense because the lowest she's competing at lately is still like around 200 pounds, isn't it?
Yeah, and I walk around at like 145 to 147.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I just can't. I'm just so low body fat. I cannot make 132. Even if it was day before, I think I would really struggle to make 132. I cut down like to 135, but it's like I don't have much more to give up at that point.
For sure. And when you were really young, when you were in the Olympics, what division did you compete in then?
It was actually 138. It was 63 kilos, so it was like it was 138.75. So okay. It was even a little heavier. Like I cut. But I didn't have to cut really hard that weight, so making 135, it's just not a problem.
Right. And, but that always, to me, kind of tells a story. Like, if you were competing at, let's say, 125, if that's a division or whatever, in the Olympics, you could still say you're much older, so you can't make that. But some people say, well, why couldn't she? But if you were competing at 138, for anyone to think that you could be 132 now isn't reasonable. And I totally get that. And it's unfortunate that that's the cutoff. I don't know why. I mean, has anything been changed ever in the weight classes, the exact weights in any major jiu-jitsu organization that you know of?
No, so it's only ADCC that has that 2 big women's weight classes. And I really hope if they changed it and they had even a 3rd division that was like, like up to only like 160, I would do ADCC in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
if they had a cap, and then they let the girls that were bigger do like the more open class, they'd actually probably find a lot more girls were interested.
Yeah.
But like nobody wants to get a surgery over just like that. We don't go with guys that are that big. There's just it's a deterrent for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? I really am surprised at ADCC not getting that. It's like, why are they wanting smaller girls to agree to go in there in such a dangerous atmosphere with really big girls? I just that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense to me. And I don't know. I mean, and I'm not trying to take a shot at ADCC, but I know that it is definitely more of a patriarchal society in the United Arab Emirates and in the Middle East, and it almost makes me feel like maybe they're just somehow not quite caring a lot about seeing a lot of women competing. Do you ever think that?
So it's a kind of tournament that if they wanted to just only have a men's and not have women at all, they could do that.
Right.
So I just maybe feel like for a long time, the no-gi women's weren't quite as developed as the gi aspect. And I think that they just haven't adjusted to the times, where a lot of the no-gi girls now are like really phenomenal. And they just have to make that adjustment, because there's 4 weight classes for the gi. So I don't think it's like a man-woman thing. I think it's just no-gi had to get more depth and get tougher. And I think that it's arrived. And so that they can a weight class now, and it won't be, people who may not be as good at such a prestigious tournament. They will have great competitors there.
I hope so too. I hope they do it pretty soon. Not to say that you can't keep competing for many years to come, but if they did this like 15 years from now, you probably wouldn't be competing. It reminds me of a commercial. I still remember. I don't know if you ever remember silly commercials or stuff from like 20 years ago or anything like that. I'm older than you, and so I definitely do. I remember a commercial where they had, I think, like a hockey player, and they said, "Hey, NHL Network is now available for free with whatever subscription." And they had a guy who had retired, and he was mowing his lawn, and they asked him what he thought. And he said, "That's great, but what am I now? I'm gardening." Right? And he was like, after he retires, they create this great thing where all of his relatives around the country could have seen his games without, paying a lot or whatever. And he said, "Now I'm gardening, great, But so hopefully it happens before you're gardening.
I don't feel like that, because women's wrestling, they have a lot more opportunities now than they did whenever I competed.
Right.
But I'm really happy for the girls, and I'm really happy for the growth. So it's I'm not like, oh great, well, I didn't have these, I didn't have cadet worlds when I was younger, and I didn't have like there's like U23 and U20, and there's just different tournaments that didn't exist whenever I was competing. But I'm just really happy that it's growing and thriving. And so if it does it past the times that I compete, then I'll still be happy for those girls.
Absolutely. I like that. You've always had a great attitude, and I really like that. That's why I've always felt you're an excellent representative of MMA and women's MMA, and just a good role model. And to me, that's important. I'm an old school guy, and I really like that, and I really always respect and appreciate you and your efforts.
I appreciate it. It's not always considered like in the MMA world, because like really what's kind of looked at as like the hot new thing,
right,
and the controversial thing, and sometimes saying like the things that are complete bull crap. So, so just doing the right thing and saying and being good, it isn't. Sometimes it goes a lot more unrecognized. So I appreciate that. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Did you ever have anyone throughout the years in MMA try to tell you, let's do the opposite, like let's get a gimmick? I can imagine, it's hard to picture it, but did anyone ever say, "Sarah, walk in there and say you're going to take this girl down, break her arms and legs off, and shove them down her throat," or something? Or did anyone ever say, like, go in and be like a crazy heel or something?
Yeah, I've gotten that advice, and I still get that, like, oh, call this person out and just instigate and be obnoxious and talk trash. and also like put up pictures, like looking more, like more showing more skin
Right,
or
Instagram-y stuff, right? Maybe.
yeah, I've just never been comfortable with that. And I think that, I don't know, for me, it's just important to be who you are. And some people, like when they do that, that is being who they are. They like to joke around and talk trash. And, some people, they're not even in the UFC and they like to show skin and they're really, I'm just a little bit more modest. So I think that for me, it's more important to just be true to myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree and respect that a lot. So let's talk about the fight this past week. It was set with Aspen Ladd, and she missed weight. And I know you've already talked about this. I'm not trying to, browbeat you with this or, get you to say anything that you're not planning on saying. So forgive me, but I wanted to just ask a couple of questions. The fight didn't happen. Aspen Ladd missed weight probably for the 6th or 7th or 8th time in the UFC. All respect to her, but she's missed weight more than she's made weight. So coming into the fight, you both were top 10. You have more experience. She was 14 years younger and missed weight. And it makes perfect sense to a majority of people. In fact, the other MMA media people that I spoke with, all of them said if we were Sarah McMahon, we wouldn't have taken that fight.
Yeah.
Tell me what the thinking was in your head and with your management, and if you, as much as you're wanting to discuss, what was the mindset between you guys when you found out she missed?
So, I mean, it's not like we were entirely surprised. Both times that I was matched up against her, that was a concern of mine. And the first time that we were asked to match up, it was during COVID, and she asked if the fight could be at 145. And she had never fought at 145, but I was like, no, I can make 30 like now. Like, no, like I walk around at 145. There's no way I fight there. I mean, like it'd be different if I walked around heavier, but it's just no advantage. It's only an advantage to her.
Right.
But at that point, she had not missed nearly as many times as she has, or she hadn't been pulled from cards. And so this time being matched up, I was asking for somebody higher ranked, but they were injured. And so it's kind of like she was available and she was technically ranked higher than me. So it was still a good fight for me. So I was like, okay, she has enough like behind her name still to make this like a win over hers, looks good for me.
Yeah.
But I was concerned. Like I was concerned when she pulled out because she said that she got sick with COVID. And then, one of my teammates sent me a post that they screenshot from one of her teammates. And like 2 days later, she was like in training.
That's very strange.
Yeah. And it was really stressful to me because I was like,
what the hell? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, and I was like, maybe she had COVID, maybe not. I don't know. Cause I mean, obviously I wasn't there. I didn't see any tests.
Right.
And so maybe she did, and she recovered quickly.
Yeah. Questionable though.
Cause very soon after they were asking for September 10th, but it's like, if you have COVID, you don't know how long you're going to sick. You don't know how you're going to be out. So like, I thought it was strange to reschedule with a certain date being like, well, are they going to pull out again because she was sick longer and didn't recover well?
Very strange.
But I thought maybe she pulled out because she was struggling with her weight. And, I was like, okay, if she needs 5 more weeks to make weight, then that's fine. That's the mindset that I had. Not saying that happened, or I was just like, okay, as long as she makes weight, whatever happens on September 17th, I'm going to get in that cage with her and fight her, And so I hadn't heard anything at all. And I get a call, like I had just finished my weight cut. And I had a missed call from my manager, a missed text, my manager saying, call me ASAP. And I'm already down to weight at this point.
Already dehydrated down. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I've made the weight, and I'm like, okay, I call back, and I looked at the text, and it said she's 138 and the doctor advised her to stop cutting. But it's like, man, if doctors were in there for most of us cutting, they wouldn't have.
They advised all of you to stop. Yeah.
cutting weight is hard for everybody.
Yeah.
It really is, you know, and I don't know what condition she was in. I just saw her at the weigh-ins, and yeah, she didn't look in great condition, but just because I like keep my head held high and I smile and talk to people at weigh-ins, that doesn't mean it's not really, really difficult,
Yeah.
especially as you get older.
For sure.
Especially being, you know, having made weight so much in my life, it's like you get to know your body better, but man, it's still tough.
For sure.
So I view that like as many times as you miss weight, you're not that weight class. You want to be that weight class, but that's not your weight class. And
Right.
you don't get to like keep missing and get that advantage over people. And it is an advantage. Like,
Yes.
I think that somebody, I don't know, I haven't looked at the stats myself, but somebody said that it's 70% of the time when people miss weight, that person wins the fight.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. And that's not an advantage I'm willing to give anyone.
Nope.
You know, especially when she's ranked number 7, I'm ranked number 8. No, cut those 2 pounds, you know?
No,
So
agreed.
in my head, I was like, I wish that I know that they, the laws, the policies, you know, like for commissions
Right.
they don't automatically cancel out if someone doesn't make weight. And they do in wrestling. If you don't make weight in wrestling, you don't wrestle that weight class, even if it's by 1.
Interesting.
In jiu-jitsu, same way.
Same.
You don't make weight, sorry for your luck.
Canceled. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they, the laws say that I can still be offered the bout, but they fine my opponent. But for me, like potentially going out there and giving somebody an advantage, you can't put a price on that.
Right.
Because it's my win-loss purse and my win-loss record. That's different,
That's
you know,
huge.
like it'd be different if there was no way that person could win.
Right.
Like, but they can. And, you know, a year from now, nobody remembers, oh, she missed weight. They just see this person won, this person lost. And so I was like not thrilled about the matchup because of her, you know, weight issues. And when she has made weight, she's been pulled from the card because it's just been, she's been up there shaking and stuff like that. So it's like, I just didn't want that. I don't have time to waste. I want competitions and I want to reap the benefits of the work I put in. And I was really, really upset that she took that from me.
Absolutely. Really well stated, and I appreciate that honest and sincere information. It makes sense. I had forgotten that just a month and a half or so earlier, both of you were scheduled to fight, and she pulled out. And yeah, that is very curious that they said she had COVID, and then 2 days later, she's posting training videos, and then they know an exact date. It is weird. Yeah, it's and especially in light of that, the fact that she essentially kind of wasted your time in nearly going through a full camp a month and a half earlier, and then the second time comes back and says, well, how's this? I wasted your time for one camp, and now I'm coming in late. How do you like them apples? And it really does make sense. Say that again?
I was supposed to fight her a couple years ago, but she can't. I don't blame her for this. She hurt her knee a week before.
Oh.
So all the work for the camp, she hurts her knee a week before, and she had to get surgery. So it was the third time, but the other ones, they were more legit. This one was not.
No, exactly. But it does make sense. I like the 3 strikes you're out thing. I think in America, a lot of us kind of sometimes operate that system, whether it's in personal relationships or business relationships, or even if a restaurant or hair salon somehow screws you over 3 times in a row. I think we all have a right to say, hey, I was nice to give you 3 times. Your third time you struck out. And it does make sense here. And I totally get that, and I appreciate that. And may I ask, in a situation like that, does the UFC try to nudge you? Do they come and say, come on, Sarah, please? What if we give you a locker room bonus plus the 30% or 20%? Or do they really kind of respect your decision right away?
So they don't like try to, well, for me personally, they didn't try to like force it or push it or, you know, any of that issue. But they do want fights to go on.
Yeah.
They understand that you have the right to say no. But I was kind of more fortunate too, because that card had like 14 fights on the card. So losing them really wasn't like as big of a deal. because they weren't going to be like short on the card.
Right.
And it wasn't like it was a pay-per-view and, there was a lot. It was a fight night. But obviously they want the fights that they scheduled and the money they put out and the promoting and the hotel and, all of that. They want compensation for that. They want it to pan out. And the fighter who makes weight does too.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, the fighter who doesn't make weight wants it to pan out, but just in their favor.
Right.
They want to have that edge.
Right.
And so,
yeah, starting up to, and it's, I mean, not that the age was going to be a factor, because I do feel you would have won that fight, but in essence, just, on paper, she's already coming in with a 14-year age advantage. Having other factors go in her favor is ridiculous. I think it almost would have been more reasonable had you been the one missing weight, saying, okay, you're going to come in 14 years younger than me. How about I come in a few pounds heavier? And then, and then we can be all good, right? Because then it kind of might have been interesting for her to see, but then that's not what you do and that's not what you're about, and the discipline you have and as hard as you have to work. And you made a good point that I don't want to be left unclear in the interview, in that you said if doctors were in most of your camps, not you, but most of the UFC fighters or everyone's camp, and watching the dire situation that goes on with weight cutting, they'd probably be telling a large percentage of you guys to stop cutting. But instead, you're right, for some reason they're randomly alerted about this or that person or this or that person's history, and then they go into their camp and say, okay, it's not healthy for her to keep cutting, not really seeing the pain and suffering that most of you guys are going through that do make the cut, and that isn't fair, because it doesn't make sense. Two questions. A, do you think UFC should let her be scheduled ever again for a bantamweight fight? B, do you think UFC will ever again let her be scheduled for a bantamweight fight?
I don't think so. I think she said that she's going up to 145 even before, but somebody told me that Dana said she has to go up to 145. So I don't think that they'll have that problem again with her. And it sucks for the people, because I'm not the only one. There's 2 other fighters who refused to fight her because she missed weight. So out on those fights as well. When she could have made the decision, before and accepted that it just wasn't the right weight class for her.
Right. I remember, wasn't it Leslie Smith that actually kind of lost her UFC contract? Now, I'm not trying to be controversial. I kind of think that she was matched up against Aspen Ladd, and when Leslie said, I'm not taking it, they kind of kicked her out of the UFC. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you remember that matchup like 4 or 5 years ago?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I know one of them was Macy Chatham, but
right.
First one was.
Right. But yeah, she's done it. So at 145, not to make this all about Aspen Ladd, but at 145, although it was on short notice, she got the brakes beaten off her by Norma Dumont. Can she do a lot better at 145, or was that an example, do you think, of what Aspen Ladd can do at 145?
I think she trains all the time, so that's why she took the short notice fight, and I think that is representative of her capabilities.
I like it. That's honest. Okay, so I appreciate that, and you mentioned that in a classy and respectful way. And I appreciate that a lot, because that's who you are. Okay, so the Aspen Ladd chapter of your life, I think, is done. Hopefully the only time that you'll be dealing with anything involving Aspen is if you go skiing at that great resort in Colorado. And then hopefully you don't have to think of her while you're there. I'm sure you won't. But so what are we looking at now? Well, first of all, may I ask this, and I hope this is not too personal, and I hope the answer is positive like I think it will be. They can't just send you home with nothing for not taking that fight, can they?
No, the UFC took really good care of me. But I tell you this, they actually can send me home with nothing.
They could have.
If she had not weighed in at all, then they probably would have given me my show purse, because I did weigh in and there was no chance, like I did my part.
Right.
But because she did weigh in and they offered me the fight at 138, they are allowed to not give you anything that's like
Wow.
legally binding. So the fact that they did pay me, like they didn't have to, and I'm like super appreciative of the UFC for that, because I have a family,
Yes.
It's not, I'm not 27 and have like no responsibilities. I
Right.
have very real responsibilities, and I own a gym, and it's like, like I'm at a different point in my life that to work that hard for that long and have nothing to show for it, man, like that's not, so I'm very grateful that UFC took care of me.
I'm glad too, and it's the right thing to do. I really am so glad to hear that, because I was really hoping that was the case, and it just would have been really wrong were that not the case. But I'm glad, like you said, they actually in the contract could have said you're out of luck, and did get you some money. And I'm not going to pry into what that figure was, but I'm certainly glad that they got you some payment, and that's cool. That's only fair. So when something like this happens, you obviously have to kind of decompress. But I think, as an Olympic level athlete and having been in this game for so many years, you've got a really strong mind. Probably you're not going to bed every night stomping on pictures of Aspen Ladd and making
No.
this part of your future the rest of this year. So I'm sure your mind's in a good space. When do you think you might be ready to fight again? And is there any talk that they're going to try to fit you in soon? I mean, you're a high-level, high-ranked fighter, so I don't think they're going to say be available on 1 week notice like someone who's been in the UFC for a year or something like that. But if they're not going to do that, is there a certain situation where you would say, as long as you give me 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and if so, what are we maybe looking at? Any people you have in mind?
So, I from what I understand, there isn't anything even available until the new year.
Okay.
But obviously there are sometimes like short notice fights that come up, and a long time ago I expressed to the UFC that, I am able to, I'm not too far overweight, and I do train year round. So like if it was the right fight, I could take something on shorter notice. But sometimes even when they offer me on short notice, the other person doesn't accept
Right.
because they want to have a training camp for wrestling. But I don't know, like I'm right now, I'm just kind of like resting and relaxing. And then also, like I only have a couple more years left. So my mind is also on, the future after MMA, what things I want to do, just because I'm not 27. So I'm not like, oh, I'm going to fight forever.
Right.
That's
Right.
not the case. So I'm thinking about like possibly Division I coaching for women's wrestling. And I also have a mental health counseling degree. So, being able to do counseling or even sports psychology is an option for me. But I also have a great thriving gym. So it's making sure that like these last couple of years, I'm lining myself up to have a really, to springboard off into like my next career too.
Absolutely, and I love that, and I support that 100%. I don't have to tell you that having multiple streams of income is an actual great thing. Now, obviously, what you don't want to do throughout the rest of your 40s when you retire is work 60 hours a week, because you have your gym and your counseling and you're going to coach women's, wrestling. Obviously, you can't do all three, or maybe you could, but I would imagine that if you could get a couple of those things going, or if you could even get a few of those things going, but be able to delegate, so that you're not having to work insane hours every single week, and then have some income, probably that could be a good idea. Are you thinking of maybe something like that?
Yeah. And so those are just my options. I'm probably going to, what my style is more like, I will be taken up by a passion of one of these and I'll run with it. So I'll either be coaching or counseling or even just investing more in my gym, because my husband does a lot of stuff with the gym right now.
Okay.
And there are things that I can do that would enhance it. So it just depends on which route I want to take.
That makes sense. Sorry, Stephanie. And what is your degree in counseling? Is it just like psychology, or I think you mentioned it?
I have a master's in mental health counseling.
I love that. What if fighters wanted to get counseling for mental? Is that your son there?
Yes, that's my son.
Hey, good looking kid. Hi, buddy. You got a great mom. What if fighters wanted to come to you? Because that could be an interesting niche to be a counselor and therapist for fighters.
Yeah, and so wrestlers and fighters and jiu-jitsu, I would definitely do stuff with like sports psychology with them. I'd probably have to get like I wouldn't go back and get my doctorate in it, but I'd probably get a certificate. So I was like pretty well versed in like the different techniques that might be different from regular counseling. But no, that would definitely be something that I'd be interested in. I do love helping people in sports, and I do that in my gym now already.
Awesome. That's so good to hear. Well, Sarah, we got like a minute left. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Hey, real quick, give me a 5-second answer. Gordon Ryan and Galvao. If Galvao was the same age as Ryan in his prime, but had the same musculature and size, how much different would the fight have been? Would the result have been different?
So I think Galvao in his prime was, oh, no, baby. Was definitely probably Lucas. No, sorry. He's moving the camera.
No problem.
I think Galvao in his prime was more ferocious, definitely more of a beast. But I don't put anything past the technique that Gordon Ryan has. I think he really is a phenomenal grappler. No, baby. He's a phenomenal grappler. And so it might have still gone the same way, but he would have had a lot more to handle in a younger Galvao. Yeah,
makes sense. I agree. What's the best place people can support you on social media, or any projects or any merch you have or anything like that? Let us know.
So I'm just Sarah Mcmahon on Instagram. I don't even know. I don't check my Twitter. So I don't know. You can find me on anyone if you just type in just my name, Sarah Mcmahon, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome.
And then I have Gym Precision Academy in northern Sacramento. So if anyone wants to come there, they can come to our gym, do a little trial period for free, or just if they're in town, they want to come in and train. We'd love to have people.
Awesome. Precision Academy in Sacramento. That is great. Sarah Mcmahon, I appreciate you so much. You know, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and as a media person now here, it's a treat for me to be able to chat with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye. And that was Sarah Mcmahon. Always good to talk to her. What a first-class person, don't you think, Dr. Adam Roorda?
First class all the way.
Yeah, and she just, and it makes sense. And in fact, she pointed something out that I think maybe possibly should be switched in MMA, because wrestling and jiu-jitsu, if you miss weight, not only does the match not go on, but I think you have a loss on your record,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it'd be interesting, I think, if that was the case in MMA, I think a lot fewer people would miss weight, wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
But as it is now, for the person to miss weight, and then them having to go to a fighter and say, well, he or she missed weight, your opponent, but please, would you mind taking the fight? We'd give you an extra few grand or whatever. It puts kind of a fighter in a bad situation.
Puts a fighter in a bad situation. Actually brings us back to that conversation earlier. I'm going to bring this up real quick, and then I'm going to call it a night. But Colin, John Woodmass actually was conversating here over on YouTube on the Hannibal TV. Everybody head on over to the Hannibal TV if you're on our Facebook right now, or our YouTube. And if you're on the Hannibal TV, check us out at MMA Power Hour. We have a Facebook group. But John Woodmass on YouTube was actually saying, didn't Triple H just say there should be more entertainment, and referencing MMA? You know what? I would have to say, there's too much of it in a lot of ways. But when it comes to the sport itself, absolutely there could be more entertainment for that. And we hit on that too, with the idea of potentially just pulling back on some of the stalling that's
modified
allowed,
rules, like
and the modified rules. And I think if we were able to make all of this more exciting that way, with more action, we get to really step it up. And I think that's what it comes back to. Entertainment value needs to be in the rule sets at the end of the day.
People like exciting fights, yeah, absolutely, and fighters that go for it, and that's true. But yeah, no, I appreciate you wanting to respond to them. It didn't have anything to do with what I was asking you, but that's okay.
Where I was going with it did, but I just lost track, so I apologize.
That's okay. No problem at all, brother. No problem.
Repeat it again. I can tell you how I was aligning with that.
So I had said if the way it is, where unlike BJJ tournaments and wrestling, where if you show up missing weight, not only is the match canceled without any options, but you have a loss on your record. And I said in MMA, if they did that, it would sure stop people from missing weight, and probably more people would have to fight one division up. Because as of right now, when the opposite happens, one fighter will miss weight and they have a chance that they're going to fight. They're almost like praying their opponent takes the fight, where they have an advantage not having to have cut the weight, and then the promoter will actually go to the other fighter and say, hey, your opponent missed weight, but we'd appreciate it if you take the fight, and this and that, and it puts the fighter in a bad position who didn't miss weight.
Yeah, no, it does go back to what I was saying with just the entertainment value in general. I think with people making weight, that helps keep the action more even, and makes a lot of the stalling actually. So one of the big skill sets that's actually allowed to be used when you come in at a heavier weight and say Sarah accepted that would be smothering a person, laying on them, and using the weight as an advantage to wear the other person down. It's not necessarily about the striking when you're talking 3 or 4 pounds, but 3 or 4 pounds when you're holding somebody up makes all the difference in the world.
Especially in a lower weight, like 135 pounds, 3 or 4 pounds is way more significant.
It's huge. It's a huge difference, and that's the weight class I wrestled in high school and in college a little bit. And then I can tell you, man, those 3 or 4 pounds, it's all the difference in the world. And I think the entertainment value goes up when you make sure people are making
the weight, without a doubt. And it's about professionals. And she made a good point that doctors, and I think a lot of people don't know this, I think a lot of people
they're in every weight room, they're everywhere, all over. They're part of the training camps, everything.
But
Colin,
not only,
Colin, I have to call it a night. We're at that point. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I am calling it a night myself. Colin, I will hand it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Adam Roorda. Appreciate you guys all watching. We did have a first guest set in Marcus Buchecha Almeida. He was not able to make it, and hopefully we can see if we can secure him for next week. We had a really good interview with him once a year ago. He's I think he had one championship fight, and it was 1-0, I think, and now he's 4-0. All 4 of his fights ending in the first round, so he's making some noise over there. Hopefully we can have him next. But in order of appearance, I want to definitely thank my brother and good friend Current Jacobs, the Giant Slayer, the man I also like to think of as the Irish Spartan, Irish American. Catch, for the love of catch, contributors on screen, including Randy Couture, Dan the Beast Severn, Josh Barnett, Eric Paulson, Gokor Chavichian, and several more, just absolute killers and supreme masters, really, if there was such a thing as a supreme master in the world of grappling. So you don't want to miss that. Curran Jacobs, also former catch wrestling champion, amazing guy, great actor, director, producer. Check that out, for the love of catch. And Sarah Mcmahon, thank you so much. We always appreciate Sarah coming on, and she is, like she said, a couple more years left. She's 41 years old. She's a killer. Love to see her get a couple wins and maybe get a shot at Amanda Nunes again, because I believe they had an amazing fight several years ago. Love to see it for the title. Thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate you. That's about it. Big love to all you guys. Go out there and spread the love in a positive way. Be that guy, be that girl. Take good care of your animals. They need it. And be gentler and kinder to yourself. You deserve it. For the entire team at the MMA Power Hour, including Dr. Adam Roorda, this is Colin Crandall. And for tonight, I'm tapping out.